My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
This job requires your heart. It does. And I'm a firm believer in that. So if you realize earlier on that this isn't it, you're annoyed at multiple requests, it is not for you. And it's not going to get better.
Amen to that.
No, I'm sorry. I play around too much, Jeremy.
No. Love it.
It's not for you, and let it go, because you're just going to be a bitter EA 7 years from now, just ruining everybody's day. Don't do it.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Welcome to episode 135 of the Leader Assistant podcast. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to be on the show, send me an email to podcast@leaderassistant.com, and I'd love to have you on. Hey friends, just a quick note from our sponsor for this episode. Office Otter automatically makes tasks from your Slack, email, or text messages. If you're like me, you wear a lot of hats as an EA, and I'm sure you struggle to stay on top of emails, Slack, Zoom calls, and the 1 million tabs you have open. So you get to the end of your week, and you think, what did I even do this week? Well, Office Otter helps you centralize your messages, prioritize your tasks, and track your performance. Their co-founder, Cheyenne, shared her story in episode 134 of this podcast. You can check that out at leaderassistant.com/134 to hear her story and how she decided to launch this tool for assistants. But in the meantime, sign up for free at officeotter.com and start unloading that mental checklist. Again, sign up for free at officeotter.com. That's OTTER.com. All right, I hope you will check out officeotter.com, and I hope you enjoyed this interview. Hey friends, thanks for tuning into the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and I'm excited today to be speaking with Tarah J. Tarah, how's it going?
Hey, I'm well. How are you?
Good, Tarah. So tell us about a couple things. One, what city are you in? And two, where do you currently work?
Sure. So I am currently in the Tampa Bay area, and I work at PODS. PODS is a relocation moving company. You've seen our containers around, I'm sure. On some highway, you've seen our containers. And I support the Chief Marketing Officer. Been there since April. So, prior to that, I was in New York. I was working at the Estée Lauder Companies, and we'll get into that. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
Nice. And so PODS is actually who we used to move across the state of Missouri. So I am very familiar with them. It was an awesome experience. It was very nice to be able to... I'll be sure to
tell logistics.
Yeah, there you go. It was nice to just load everything in there. And then just whenever, because we had to crash at my parents' place for a couple months while we found a house. And once we finally found the house, we had to rehab it. So it was great to just have everything in the pod, and then when we were ready, say, hey, bring it over. So anyway. Yeah,
our containers are loved and beloved. And I've taken a few road trips since I've moved back to Florida. And whenever I see a PODS container, I am besides myself. I literally lose it.
Nice. Awesome. Well, so yeah, let's talk a little bit about your career. So kind of rewind and tell us about maybe your first role in the, after high school or college, and then how did you end up getting into the executive assistant career?
Yeah, well, my story is, I think, probably different than most people. I started working for my mom. My mom, migrated to this country around 18, 19 years old. And, she is truly this, American dream. It's really inspirational when I really think about how far our families come. But I started working for my mom. My mom was a super ambitious entrepreneur. And as we know, entrepreneurship is very difficult. And she was a single mom at some point, and I was helping her start her business. I was a little girl working. And that led into late into high school and going into college. My mom had a solid mortgage business that she had been running for years. And I did my part. I joined the family business, helped her run in the office, helped her run at home when I could. And that's where it really started. It was a very natural skill. I just did what needed to be done. It's very customer facing and focused. Anything mortgage and real estate related, as you know, it's personal, it's emotional, people, you're essentially kind of, making someone's dreams come true or not. Yeah. So it was an interesting space to be in. And my mom loved real estate just because I think her story was coming to the country and then buying her first home. That was such an achievement. And I think that moment, it stuck out to her so much that she chose it as a career at some point in her life. So that's how I started. And I did that in college. That's how I kind of got my money. And after graduating, I had maybe a week left in college. And I said, you know what, I'm going to New York. And I graduated on the 3rd, and the 4th I was out. And I had no plans really. And I landed at a small publishing house that is actually still open, and they opened in 2014. So, I went and I supported the creative editor, and it was weird. It was weird because I was kind of essentially leaving a family environment, going into another one, but it wasn't my family. And I think there I kind of got discouraged in the role because I was facing, this creative side of, I love to write. And that was something that I worked on, as English wasn't my first language. So I caught myself writing for fun and writing to fulfill kind of this, I want to be a great English speaker dream of mine. French is my first language. So when I was in that role, I was kind of battling, do I want to be a writer? Do I want to focus on the admin role? And that didn't work out. That didn't work out at all. And I found myself in New York, maybe a year into graduating, and really struggling. I'm really struggling. And I think that's where, for me, the opportunity came for me to really fall in love with the EA role. I started temping. Temping in Manhattan is a wonderful experience. And I had no benefits, no 401k, no vacation days, but it was baptism by fire as well. But, I had a phenomenal experience. And, I landed at Marina Mar for a small maternity leave. I really learned how to be a city EA, because I think that's different than another type of EA. I do think, being in New York is just a different breed of professionals, and I hope no one's offended, but that's my experience. It doesn't mean that anyone is not smarter or smarter than the other. That's just the experience that I had. It was a lot quicker and faster than I had anticipated. And that role came to an end, and I looked for work for a month, Jeremy, didn't find anything in 2015. And I said, you know what, maybe it's time to go back to New York. And Estée Lauder came into my life, and they were in my life for a very long time. Wow. So, yeah, a very long time. And, I left for a while, went to Egon Zehnder, which is a headhunting firm, spent about 6-7 months there, and went back to Estée Lauder. So there was a little back and forth, which I appreciated, and it was on good terms, and they asked me to come back. But, that journey in itself was phenomenal. I wish it for everyone. If someone ever tells me I'm going to work at the Estée Lauder Companies, I would say go. You are in for a special treat. And right around when was it? March of 2020. I get a big blow. My mom's diagnosed with cancer, and it's at the later stage. And at this point, we're all working from home. That 3rd week of March, COVID is kind of ramping through the States, and most people are remote. So I literally packed one bag, came to Florida, worked remote for almost a year. And, with life and how things worked out, I just ended up relocating to Florida. And, it's funny with PODS that when I interviewed for the role and I met my former boss, my current boss now is a newer CMO, and she's fabulous. But when I met my former boss, we just clicked. And I said, I wasn't looking to move this fast into anything, but her and I, we clicked so well. And I've just, when I think about my journey as an EA, Jeremy, it's been so smooth. It's been so great. People have poured into me so much. And I have a lot of family that doesn't understand what I do all day. And I have to, at this point in my life, I don't explain it anymore. Like, the role's awesome. You're missing out. Be an EA. But that's how I got here. And I, definitely peaks and valleys, lots of lessons, mistakes, but it's been great. And I'm in phenomenal hands now. PODS it's a wonderful company. There are wonderful, talented, brilliant, kind-hearted people. I'm in really good hands. So I've been very, very fortunate.
Wow. So yeah, that's a nice, short version of your life story. Thanks for.
I feel like did you need all of that, or
no,
do you want
me to? That was great. That was great. So tell us a little bit about a couple things that stood out. One, your time in New York and how you said it was fast paced and just kind of a whole different world. Do you have any examples of stories of your time in New York and maybe what now that you're in Florida, maybe it's one of the stories that's kind of different that maybe would never happen outside of a big city like New York?
I think everything that happened in New York has never happened in Florida. I don't even know is it comparable? So when I think of my day to day, right? I remember when I worked at Estée Lauder, just the individuals that you would sometimes run into, the personalities, the brilliant minds. It's not to say that there aren't brilliant minds in Florida, but at that level of creativity, they're managing billion-dollar brands, really impacting culture. It's seeing celebrities or seeing models go from underrated to superstars after they sign a contract with a brand. It's a very different experience. If I can think of something that's what I think is different? I think it was the details. Like I find that in my, I found that in my former role that it was all about the touch, the high touch, how something was placed on a table, how something was worded, how documents were formatted. There's such value, it's so different. I don't want to offend my current company because it's just different. The people are different. The priorities are different sometimes. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
No,
but
I mean, even just the details part, like, maybe there's a little bit more OCD-ness in New York.
Yes, I think there's definitely a lot more OCD-ness. I also came from a completely different space, a kind of a space when you're being creative, anything goes in a way, if you think about it. And now, with PODS, I'm humbled every single day. And I feel like I'm closer to my team at PODS. I feel like I have an opportunity to really listen to people's stories and see who they are and watch them work. And, I've seen a few people get promoted these past few months. And it's just, I remember when I worked for a larger company, a promotion was an announcement, and then you heard about it. But now I really get to see the person that got promoted, how it changed them, their interactions, and just knowing that this person is so excited to work here. It's different because it's smaller, and I'm grateful for that. I love being a part of people's stories, and I feel that when I worked in New York, it becomes highly transactional because you're going at such a quick pace and you're trying to get everything done. Everything's important. It's urgent. The whole world's on fire. The meeting hasn't started. Where's the Zoom? I need my coffee. I need 30 more meetings by the end of the day, even though I have no time. So, and here it's just, it's such a more precious experience, I think. And I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, it's definitely a different pace of life for sure. So, okay, so then do you have any lessons learned or, mistakes that you made over the years that are, a story that you could share that would help those listening who, whether they're in New York or Florida or London, would just, appreciate hearing from someone to let them know that they're not alone in their challenges and mistakes?
Yeah. I can think of so many mistakes, but I think one of the greatest mistakes that I made was I took a wrong job, and I knew it was the wrong job. And so many things happened. And what happened was I was so attracted to the shiny objects, the unlimited PTO, the food in the fridge. I can save on lunch. Food in New York is so expensive, Jeremy. I get to travel to, this state every now and then, opportunities that, and every EA culture at companies are different. So I think the greatest mistake I made was I took the wrong job, even though my gut screamed no. My gut was saying no. And it happens. It really, really happens. And sometimes, we take the wrong job because we don't know. We haven't really developed ourselves to know that we don't fit in this environment, and when that does happen, and if anyone feels like they're in a position where I've made a mistake and now it's it's impacting my performance, I hate coming to work every day. Be nice to yourself. Be nice to yourself, and just know that you have the same hopes that they had, and hopefully the company's goals and hopes were honest, but you had the same goals and hopes that they did. And this is just a lesson, and it's not a failure. And I went around kind of with this chip on my shoulder for so long, feeling like I failed. Jeremy, I'm really close to my family, and I hate giving them bad news. I just hate it. Like I messed up, or, I'm struggling at work, or whenever I would struggle in school. So it was kind of like this whole experience that I have to have, and to say to my mom, hey, I'm going to have to quit. My manager and I are not on the same page. I'm so miserable that I'm actually not working. I come to work every day and I'm completely just not even there. And that had never happened to me before. So just be nice to yourself. Know that, these are lessons. These are great lessons that I've learned. But most of all, be mindful of your time. Do not stick around. I don't care if you've been at a job for 6 weeks. If it's time to go, it's done. And, I think people and I'm a little bit more radical about this because I'm learning the value of time. Time is super valuable. And while you're wasting your time at the wrong job, there's the right job looking for you. They're out there looking for you, looking for your skills, looking for your passion, and you're pouring into the wrong place at the wrong time. So that to me, I think had I not made the choice that I made, I think I would have had different experiences. And Jeremy, I think our job involves or requires us to be extremely emotionally intelligent. And it's one of those things where I say, take it personal. Take your time personally. Do not waste your own time.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. What other kind of emotionally intelligent tips do you have for how have you stayed sharp in that area?
I have tough skin naturally. But I've learned to understand that most people aren't emotionally intelligent. So then what that does, it sets an arena for me to read between the lines quickly, and I'm high ego in my personal life, but in my work life, I'm low ego on purpose. I roll my sleeve up, I wash dishes, I take the trash out, and I do it on purpose because I always want to make sure that I'm of service because that's what the role's for. And I never want to step out of that because once an EA stops being of service, you become something else, and it's okay. And it's okay if you say to yourself, hey, I don't want to be an EA anymore. I'm not enjoying this. Do something else. But I think as a career EA, I truly believe that my job at the core is to be of service and to really be devoted to whomever I'm supporting in whichever capacity. So it's not so much how they're saying it. It's what are they saying? What do you need to get out of whatever interaction you're having to do your job? And also, I realized quickly, if it's not hurting me, if it's not impairing my work, if it's not going to mess up my relationship with my boss or impact, my character or how people view my character, I don't care. And those are just rules I set for myself. Especially when you work in these giant companies and you're dealing with so many difficult personalities, so many different priorities. What's important to me and my boss, it's not to say that one of their direct reports initiatives or projects are not important, but respectfully, it may not be important at that time. And how do you navigate that with someone? How do you, they're getting upset because you're not doing something for them, right? And you're on the back end knowing that your leader doesn't have the bandwidth nor the capacity to prioritize this. And this person's taking it personally. And this is an example, Jeremy. There's the back and forth. This EA is incompetent. And how do you come out of that and say, well, I'm not incompetent. It just is what it is. And I set boundaries for myself. I take what I need to take from a conversation and I move on. And again, always a service. At the end, I think something that I've learned is if I ever feel like I have not an altercation, but if I feel like I have kind of a rough exchange with someone, because it does happen, because we have to put our foot down sometimes, it is what it is. I always kind of revert and I'm like, hey, do you need anything else? Or I might follow up after and be like, hey, I hope that your conversation with, my manager was fruitful. Are there any follow-up items that I can help you with? And that kind of puts it back at the service place where they, I felt like my leaders are now, okay, I'm safe with this person. I can trust this person. So that's a little trick that I learned over time.
Yeah, that's great. And it shows that you don't just care about checking the box off on your to-do list of, hey, I scheduled that meeting and I'm done with it. You actually care that that team member gets what they need and that your executive helps them get what they need. Okay, so what about executives who aren't really used to having an assistant, or maybe they've had an assistant, but they've never really empowered them, or they like to micromanage and they struggle to give up control. How would you encourage assistants listening to really try and work well with an assistant or an executive like that?
Yeah. I really want, if anyone who's listening, if this is the only thing you take away from this conversation, this is what it needs to be, Jeremy, because this is something that I'm learning now. You must set the stage. You must set the stage. Even if this leader's never had an assistant, you need to set the stage in a way that if you're not getting what you want out of that working relationship at first, if you're organized, if you're assertive, if you set your goals like everybody else on the team, right? And they're smart, they can be measured. If you're setting the stage for yourself, the play is going to play out. It really is. And I learned that from one of my C-suite leaders at PODS. I went into his office and we were just, he was pouring into me and I really appreciate that. But he's like, sometimes you're not going to get your way with someone because, maybe they haven't interacted with an EA before, they haven't interacted in a certain way with someone. And now instead of, having that back and forth, I want to help, but you don't let me help. I want to get in, but you're not letting me in as your EA. That weird fumbling space. Just set the stage and it's going to play out. And that's something that I do daily. I set the stage with my time. I set the stage with my goals. I set the expectation with myself. If I'm taking care of something, it's taken care of. You don't need to ask me anything. You can ask if you want to, but that I manage everything. And that's super important. And it's a broad statement, setting the stage, but basically it's owning it. Own your job, really own it. And have goals that are measurable. And I think our job is so hard to measure because for the most part, it is very transactional. So is it that I set up 90% of my meetings? No, it's that, all right, I audited my boss's time and I feel like these one-on-ones don't need to be an hour. They can be 30 minutes. They can be 45 minutes. I had a discussion with my boss, and not this current boss, but I'm just speaking. I do that, Jeremy, and if that's confusing, let me know.
No,
but, for example, I'm having a discussion with my boss about which of your leaders do you feel need your attention the most? So do I need to make, these one-on-ones 45 minutes or an hour? I'm not just scheduling to schedule. And again, we're learning about the value of time and what your leader does with their time. It kind of falls on you. because my leader doesn't tell me I can't cancel meetings. So what I move and what I schedule, she or he's going to do what I did essentially throughout the day. And if I'm not thinking for them, then I'm not setting that stage for a partnership. They're not going to come to me for, bigger projects and then realize like, oh, this is my partner.
Yeah, that's great. So what are some specific ways that you manage calendar, like maybe some tips or tactics on managing your executive's time?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I have so many different people now.
You kind of sprinkled it in a little bit with like, oh, this hour-long meeting only needs to be half an hour, but what's some other?
So I have a rule, and listen, if you don't agree with me, it's fine, but this is my rule. Rarely do I schedule hour meetings. 45 minutes. That's my little golden. Whenever someone asks for an hour, I'm like, yeah, you need 45 minutes. You're good. And if they ask for an hour and a half, and I'm like, oh, you need an hour. Okay, I see what's going on here. But so how do I manage my leaders? Just golden rule. Do you really need an hour? That's something that really has helped me with time. Now, something that my current boss is not into inbox management, which sucks because, my former boss was heavily into inbox management, and that kind of let me know what was going on, how I was prioritizing and how I was scheduling, to the point that we didn't need to have a one-on-one because I went through the inbox and I already know what's pressing. So a tip is every day, coming to the office, and instead of, and I say, if you already have a routine, I say maybe try to come in 15 to 20 minutes earlier. And instead of looking at the calendar, instead of, looking at your to-do list, read your leader's inbox backwards. So you go from the night before, the day before, you skim through everything through the night prior, and you stop there. I don't start with the new day. I don't start with the new day as inbox until I go through my to-do list. After that, I read all of those emails from the day prior, make sure I didn't miss anything, and then I start my to-do list. And with the calendar, if I need to change anything from overnight, then I do that first thing in the morning. I created a whole process for myself, Jeremy. And I think I might show it to you so you can see how I manage my time. So because I'm supporting multiple leaders, but that's the first thing. That inbox is really important, and it's really helpful, and it helps you know what's going on. When you see things come through the pipeline, you're not like a deer in headlights. What's this meeting about? You don't even know how to prepare yourself for it, how to prepare your leader for it. So that's my biggest tip. Work with that trust with your leader to have access to their inbox. The 45-minute rule, the golden rule, which I said. And last but not least, and this is really, for me, this is really like a big deal. Prioritize your leader's peace before anything else. And this is, for me, I have boundaries. I will put my foot down. I will not schedule over certain times. When I see that there's a maximum amount of hours in the week, and these are tough rules, after a maximum amount of hours in the week, I no longer schedule. It's moving to the next week, and that's the end of it. I will not burn out my leader under any circumstance. They can burn themselves out. If they want to add their own meetings, that's great. But I didn't do that. That's awesome. So that's and that's a big one, because that means that you're putting your neck on the line, because your leader might say, well, that was important to me. Well, so is your sanity and getting home to your kids. That's important to me. Yeah. And then now we're having a real discussion about what's important to us. It's really out of genuine care and respect for the person, because you're not just there to fill up their calendar. You're there to create a balance, at least do your best to. And then I've had leaders who are back to back to back to back where I can't give them a break, and I accept that. And what I do in those cases is I look at meetings that really could happen next week. And I really build relationships with other stakeholders. And I say, hey, listen, be honest with me. Can this happen next week? And then now, you're learning on your own where that person is thinking, oh, I don't need that meeting this week, but they won't say anything, and you're learning to kind of create the time and give the time back to your leaders. So those are that's how I've succeeded. That's how I've succeeded. And, be courteous, of course. Don't run through people's calendars. Some EAs still don't understand that. It's okay. But be courteous as much as you can. And that's that. I don't have any magic tricks. I have a process from morning until 5 p.m. And I do the same thing every day. And my projects shift. I have a time for my projects, but it's my little process, I know I run a report every Tuesday. It's in my, it's in my calendar, it's in my process, and I run it and I send these reports out. I manage another inbox, and I know that from 2 to 3, I'm doing all those inquiries for those inboxes. So from 2 to 3, you might not hear from me, and it is and I have to do it. So, that's that. I hope I answered that the best way that I could.
That was awesome. Yeah. I think that, the difference, I talk about this a lot in my coaching or my training or the podcast, but the difference between, a leader assistant and an average assistant, if you will, is that idea that you're not just sitting around, twiddling your fingers and waiting for things to happen. You're attacking the calendar and you're attacking the inbox and you're attacking the projects and you're like, hey, my executive does not need to have 12 hours of back-to-back meetings. This meeting doesn't really need an hour and a half. This meeting could be a 15-minute phone call. Like, just thinking at that high level instead of just being in the weeds of, okay, I'm just going to schedule this meeting. Sure, I can do that. So, thanks for sharing those tips. It's amazing just hearing, your passion for the EA profession, and then also your leadership skills are coming through. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, my friend.
All right. So let's kind of wrap things up. I like to keep these short and sweet. What is one thing that you would tell a new assistant? So somebody just got their first job, maybe they're a month into it, maybe they start next week. What's one thing that you would encourage them with as they get ready to launch their career?
The EA role is one of, I don't want to say the only role, but it is one of the only roles that gives you back everything you put in. It really is. And you have to work with your heart and your mind and find the balance and really work from a place of love. And, we're professionals, so we know what that means. But you really have to work from a place of love. It is not for people who don't love what they do. And the EA role it's so transparent. If you don't love being an EA, it shows. It really shows. It shows in the way that you, it shows in your interactions. It shows in, how, when you make mistakes, how do you say, oh man, I messed up, when you're wrong, do you apologize? So put your heart into it. This job requires your heart. It does. And I'm a firm believer in that. So if you realize earlier on that this isn't it, you're annoyed at multiple requests, it is not for you. And it's not going to get better.
Amen to that.
I'm sorry. I play around too much, Jeremy.
No.
This is not for you, and let it go, because you're just going to be a bitter EA 7 years from now, just ruining everybody's day. Don't do it. No, but seriously, it is a work of the heart, and you truly get what you put in is exactly what you get out of it. You put in negativity. I don't want to say a lack of attention to detail, because I have my moments where I'm moving so quickly that I can't be attentive to every detail. But you put in negative energy, you put in, I don't want to do this, you put in, why are they asking me for that? You're gonna get it right back. It'll happen in your work. So that is that is my only advice. You know, I've had many times where I've had, you know, incidents happen where my managers, you know, they made me cry. You know, they didn't look out for me the way they should have. And, you know, I had a lot of maturing to do as well, Jeremy. But, you know, in those moments where I needed to mature and I needed their guidance and they didn't feel like doing it because they were too busy. And, you know, I had those moments where I said, I never want to do this again, you know. And when I found the right leader, I was like, oh, yeah, I love this job. I was like, all right, never mind. And those moments will come. But again, you know, if you're going to do this, it's a work of the heart. It's not just a skill thing. It really is a work of the heart.
Well said, Tarah. Well said. I wanted to kind of bring out too that, you know, you mentioned early on that, you know, English wasn't your first language, right? Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, you said something about your goal of, you know, being a fluent English speaker or whatever. Well, you're very fluent and very crisp English, and I think it's very motivational and encouraging to just hear like, okay, you know what, this is the goal that you had, and just to hear you talk even is just like a proof of the hard work you put into it. And so anyway, just wanted to say mad props to you for that.
Oh, thank you.
And also, you speak French, is that right?
Yes.
So could you say thanks for listening to the Leader Assistant podcast in French?
Gosh.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
You're making me nervous. Hold on. You're scaring me. Hold on 1 second. This is so embarrassing. All right. Thank you for... What do you want me to say?
Just say something like, thanks for listening to the podcast, or thanks for listening to the Leader Assistant podcast.
I want to say it in Creole because I'm Haitian and what's happening at the border right now, but I know that.
Do that then.
Oh, really?
It's up to you.
Okay.
All you.
Do you want me to do it now?
Sure.
Tout le monde qui attendait nous, je veux dire merci en pile pour l'occasion ça et me souhaiter que nous tournions encore. Merci.
Very nice. Very nice. And I'm just going to trust.
I could do it in French too, but that made me a little nervous.
Well, I'm just trusting that you're actually saying something like that because I don't know what you're saying.
I promise you, I am saying only nice things. You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
I was interviewing for this role, and the brand president, he's the founder of the brand. It's a brand at Sephora, and he wanted a French-speaking assistant. And I was like, that's fine. I speak in French to my mother. But they were like, you have to interview in French. And I was like, no. I'm like, that is a different kind of French, and you know it. That is just no. But, but again, if anyone is, in Canada or wherever, juste merci pour votre attention et j'étais super contente de parler avec Jérémy ce soir et je vous souhaite une bonne soirée. So, just wishing everyone a really great evening and thank you for listening. That was in French.
Love it. That's perfect. Thank you so much for doing that. I know there's assistants all over the world, and I can barely speak English, so I like to use my guests who can speak other languages. So thank you. So Tarah, thanks again for being on the show. Where can people connect with you? Do you want them to connect with you? How can they reach out and say hi?
That's awesome. I am currently only on LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm currently only on LinkedIn. Tarah J. I think that's my LinkedIn profile. I found out tonight that my Skype profile was not what I thought it was.
Well, I'll put the link. I'll put the direct link in the show notes. That way, it's easy for people to find you. But yeah, thanks again. Best of luck to you and your family and your career. Thanks for being passionate about the executive assistant role. And we hopefully can meet in person someday and talk more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/135.
please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com